I'm glad everybody's here. Thank you for coming out on this brisk day. And if you're on Zoom, please mute and turn off your camera. It helps in our editing process. Last week Kevin told us how to grow plants, what to grow, and I hope they really grew this week, because Megan Glidden from the Aransas County Extension Agent for Family and Community Health will teach us how to preserve them, freeze them, can them, put them up, save them for a cold winter day like this. Okay, Megan.
I don't know if I'll be able to teach you enough in the amount of time I have, but I can teach you what not to do pretty quickly. I'm going to stand right here because I'm going to kind of look at my PowerPoint while I go, because I had a little bit more information on the one that I created last night. And so if you want the larger PowerPoint, just make sure you send me your email and I will make sure you get the larger one as well. I'm going to start with, though, how to build your garden. I did pass out to everybody what grows well in Aransas County and when to plant. It's a great, Aransas County is not that far from Porpoise. It's very much the same sort of planting style. It even tells you what to plant and when. The great thing about where we live is we can plant a lot of things year round. Maybe about 1 or 2 months out of the year they won't grow, but other than that, they'll grow pretty well. It's a great resource, that handout I gave you. What I would do if you were planning to can or put up stuff from your garden, like that is your goal with the end in mind. What I would do is first look at recipes that you're using. I want to can this. Therefore, I need to have this in my garden. Some people might always have to supplement no matter what, because there's good garden years and there's bad garden years. My husband and I really like to can our own salsa. And so we grow a salsa garden. And so it's tomatoes, it's cilantro, it's onion. That's our goal. And so our little plot that we plant, that's what we're planting in it. There's nothing else. We almost always have to supplement tomatoes for whatever reason. We just have had bad luck with tomatoes here in the last couple of years. But it's the way it is. It's fun to do that and know, hey, I grew this, I made this product, I made this, this canned item, and I did it all myself, and that's really neat. So definitely plant with the end in mind. Understand that if you want a lot of pickles, like that's your goal. You're going to pickle some pickles. It takes a lot of pickles. This little guy right here, this is actually squash. But this little guy right here took 1.5, smaller to medium size squash. This is several different colors, but overall it was, about 1.5-ish squash. And if you're going to put that work into it, you want to do as much as you can. And so really plant with that in mind. Plant with, hey, I want a ton of pickles. That's what I'm going to do. And pickles, they take up a lot of space when they're growing. Squash take up a lot of space when they're growing. So understand that when you're deciding on what to plant in your garden. But definitely plant with the end in mind. Look at your seasons. Even look at what's in season in the store. Because you're going to find some killer deals that, hey, I want to have strawberry jelly year round. These strawberries are a really good price right now. Let me go ahead and grab them, do what I need to do to turn them into jam. And so what the benefits of home food preservation mainly is it delays spoilage of food, whether you're doing that in the refrigerator, the freezer, canning something, adding sugar, adding brine to make it last longer. It delays that spoilage so your food does last longer. And heck, with the way everything is going up in price, might be helpful. And it allows your seasonal foods to be available all year round. Granted, we have great seasonal food that is available to us year round, but not always. Like I know somebody who really likes like dewberry jam. They can only get dewberries certain times of the year, and so that's that's something that they do, and they do a large amount of. And there is a growing interest in home food preservation. If you haven't seen it, the aisles in your Walmart, and I try not to say brand names, HEB even has a little bit of a home food preservation section, but the amount of canning stuff that is there is grown. They're even getting more unique jars, you know, to can in, so it's more boutique-y looking, very neat, like really cool bubbled glass, stuff like that. And so it definitely is growing. There has been an increase in sale in home food preservation. I was actually on a little internet chat with people that own Ball and Kerr, the same people, with them, and they're like, the stuff that's on the shelf is brand new. That stuff sells out. Unless it's like a mom and pop store in, you know, Podunk. The stuff in your Walmart shelves, it's selling out every year. So it is fresh, typically fresh stuff. And the interest also comes from control over food. I teach family and community health, so we talk a lot about healthy lifestyles. So controlling the amount of salt in your food, the amount of sugar in your food. Canned foods at the store have an insane amount of sugar and salt. Why is that? It's a preservative. And so they're going to do that. And so if you're not watching that when you're buying your canned items, you could increase, you know, your cholesterol or the amount of sugar that you should be consuming through your canned food items. And so this allows for that because there are recipes that are reduced sugar, low sodium, maybe even using alternative sugars to help, you know, manage that portion of your diet. I like canning because I do it with my mom. My mom was a family community. Yes, go ahead.
The alternative sugars work as well as preservatives as actually.
They usually put other things in there to help with the preserving process. So like more lemon, like say it's jelly, they might put more lemon to help preserve. So that's that acid to help preserve. Okay. But those recipes, and I'll talk about recipes that you're going to want to look for here in a little bit. But the recipes that I'm telling you to use, they've been tested for the preservation process.
So we know when to add that to and we're not doing.
Yes.
I mean, I made cranberry sauce this Thanksgiving, and I'm like, okay, I can use stevia, but do cranberries have enough effect like grapes do? Or
right. So the recipes I'm going to suggest using are all going to be tested recipes. So anybody that comes to, you know, extension activities understand that we are under A&M, right? A&M is a research-based school, so we're bringing down research to y'all. So we get I would say 99% of our home food preservation information from the University of Georgia. University of Georgia is basically the A&M of Georgia. That's their research, where their extension gets the research, and that they're the home of the national home food preservation. So you're going to want to use, and I'll give you links for that. I think one of your papers has links for it as well. They're the ones that make this book. And it's called So Easy to Preserve. And they're the ones that really, when you're wanting to use the right thing, you're not wanting to kill somebody with what you create in your canning, or, you know, just hurt somebody because they get sick because you're not doing it correctly. This book tells you everything. If somebody's asking me something about home food preservation, when they call me, I get out this book, I look in here. If I can't find it right away, I get on the University of Georgia's National Food Preservation website, and I go there and I look and I send links. That's the place to go for anything canning, anything freezing, anything. How do I make this last longer in the refrigerator? It's all in here, and this has a ton of recipes in it. It's chock full. If you look up So Easy to Preserve on the internet and you put in University of Georgia at the same time, this book costs $25 and it's free shipping. If you go to Amazon, it's like $100. Don't know why. I think somebody's reselling it. But it is when I'm teaching canning classes, it is the Bible of home food preservation. It tells you step by step what you should do so you're not doing it wrong. Because what I'm teaching today is really not going to replace like an actual hands-on canning class that I do, but it's going to give you that start of what do I need to know before I get started. And maybe, oh, I did once, I'm not sure what happened. maybe I should call Megan and see if she wants to do a canning class, and we can do that. And so you're going to want to, reputable sources are also the USDA. They have a ton of recipes on their website, the Ball website, the Kerr website. People who make canning products, they have a ton of recipes on there, all tested, all tried and true.
Ball has a real good book too.
Yes, they do the Ball Blue book.
Yes,
It's
it's a very
amazing.
good book.
I'm sorry, what was the second brand?
Kerr,
Kerr,
Kerr. Ball and Kerr, they're owned by the same company. They're just still two separate
I like
brands.
Cabela's and Bath Pro.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Exactly. And so, and you can use Ball and Kerr items interchangeably. You don't have to have a Ball lid with a Ball jar. You can use a Ball lid with a Kerr jar. They can be used interchangeably. But to get back to where we were at, I like canning because I do it with my mom. She did it with her mom. My grandma on the other side did it quite a bit herself. Maybe not tried, true, and tested recipe wise, my grandmother, but now that's how we operate in our household. Does it save money? Not necessarily. It can be costly. You want to encourage, like if you're giving, jars of salsa away to friends, hey, please make sure to give me my jar back when you're done. And that's actually should be the tradition is, hey, I gave you a jar of jelly. The tradition is you eat it and you give me my jar back because it is expensive. Some things you cannot reuse. We'll talk about that here in a little while, but jars you can, until there's a crack in it or something like that. But it is an expensive hobby, especially, even gardening can be an expensive hobby. So like I saw a meme the other day that was like, thank God I planted my own garden to save $2.86. Sometimes gardening is even expensive, but we do it because we enjoy it. And you want to have control over your food and what's on your food and in your food. And is it fun? I think it's fun. I would say my dad does not like it when we're canning in the house because it's very, very hot in the house while we're canning. And he's not over the stove or anything, but it can be a warm activity. It can be make the house smell like vinegar and make your eyes burn a little bit. I think it's fun, but I find fun in the kitchen. Like that's where I find my, happiness. Heck, a lot of people during COVID found their happiness canning, and a lot of canning supplies flew off the shelf and you couldn't find it. But now it's definitely stocked full, especially at the larger Walmarts and stuff like that. Ace, you can find canning supplies too. So why do we do it? Food preservation can prevent spoilage and waste. That includes whether you're just deciding to freeze it. Freeze it before it goes bad. It lasts in your refrigerator a few days. If you're not using it, go ahead and follow the process of how do I get this to last a lot longer. Major causes of food spoilage are microorganisms, germs, mold, yeast. Those are things that come on it from the store. Naturally, enzymes in the fruits and vegetables cause natural decay. Bruising, cuts on fresh produce, so really monitor your produce when you're buying it, especially if you're not going to be utilizing it right away. And insect damage can cause food spoilage quite quickly. And so we preserve to keep our food longer. That's the goal. And so factors that affect the growth of germs, the acronym is FAT-TOM. And so it's the food, what kind of food it is, the acidity in the fruit, vegetables, the temperature you're keeping it at. That's why we encourage your temperatures of your refrigerators and freezers to be at appropriate levels. Time, so the longer you have that product, the more likely it is to go bad. Oxygen, availability of oxygen. That's why in home freezer preservation, you're taking the oxygen out of the jar as you preserve it. And so everything we do when it comes to preserving our foods, whether it's freezing it, preserving it in a jar, doing a water bath canning, pressure canning, it's all working to try to alleviate the things that are going to grow germs. So making FAT-TOM go away. We do not like FAT-TOM. It sounds like a mean person saying it, but we do not like the germs that come with that. And so when conditions are right from germs, they multiply very fast. And so there's reasons why you put up your food right away after you're done using it. That's why buffets can be a little bit of a scary place to go eat sometimes, because if something is on that food that's gonna grow germs, look at what it can do in 4 hours. It's a lot. It multiplies very fast. It's like compound interest at a bank. And so that's why we, you know, my food goes away. Like, I cook dinner, we eat dinner, it immediately is going in the fridge. It does not sit on the counter. If I have any doubt that it's sat on the counter for too long, it immediately goes to either my dogs or the trash can. If my refrigerator goes out, how long was it out? Like, what's the temperature of it when it comes back on? Like, I'm really cognizant of that stuff, because it can be really harmful. So that's one reason we preserve our foods. And
what are the food poisonings that you get from those foods?
Oh, there's a variety. I'll go into a little bit more depth, but the bad one is in canning. Canning is botulism. I had a great slide for it for y'all, but it's on this computer, and I can pass it around if you need me to. But there's all sorts of food, a variety that you can get. The worst one that we're going to talk about when it comes to preserving and canning is botulism.
Is that from the canning materials or from the material, the food?
I'll get there. Yes. So food safety is critical when preserving foods at home. You want to choose the right method of food preservation first. You want to make sure that and this is a slide I'm really sad I'm missing, it's the pH levels of food. And so you can freeze anything. You don't have to worry about acidity or anything like that when you're freezing. But when you're canning a product, you have to worry about the acidity level of something. And so for high acidic foods, like some tomatoes, sometimes tomatoes fall on both sides, and I'll tell you why. Tomatoes, anything that you're going to really preserve, so fruits have high acid in them. What else?
We're trying to get, because it's kind of funny in here.
Please turn off your speaker, please, if you're online. And but things like carrots, they don't have high acid count, so you have to preserve that differently. However, not always. For example, I pickled squash this week in my class. Squash does not have a high acidity level. But what did I add to the squash? If I pickled it, what did I add?
Vinegar.
I added a whole bunch of vinegar. My office smelled like vinegar for 2 days. A whole bunch of vinegar. So that's the preservative. I'm not having to put this in a pressure canner because I upped the acid level on this product. So this was a water, like I pickled it and put it in a water bath, and we canned it that way. I did not have to put it in a pressure cooker because there was enough acid in here to kill anything that might be harmful. Now, where that doesn't happen is, hey, I want to preserve these carrots for my garden so that they are still great carrots in 6 months. And I had a really good crop of carrots. And so you get those and you wash them and you can them. Those must be canned in a pressure cooker because you're not going to add, unless you're pickling the carrots, you're wanting the carrots like they were out of the garden. You didn't add any vinegar to it. You didn't add an acid to it. You're going to pressure cook it. If somebody does not pressure cook carrots and they just put them in a water bath, which water bath only goes to 212 degrees Fahrenheit, just boiling. Pressure cook goes to 240 degrees Fahrenheit at least. And so the bad germ you're trying to kill there is botulism. So botulism is spores that live on your vegetables. They're dormant. They're in the soil. They just live on them. That's why we wash our vegetables. If you then wash them and can them, but can them wrong, can them in a water bath, you did not kill the botulism. You took out the air from that jar in that canning process. And so now there's no air. That botulism has now come alive and it's growing and multiplying. Botulism can kill you. And it's not a pleasant death at all. No death is really, but it's not a pleasant way to go. And sometimes it's very hard to figure out what is wrong before it's already too late. That's why when you go to farmers markets, go to things like that, ask questions. How did you can this product? Use those. If you're buying from farmers markets, make sure they're doing it correctly. I'm very, very picky when people give me a canned food item that they created in their home. I'm asking them questions as they give it to me if I'm going to consume it, because there are things that can really be harmful. You cannot smell botulism. You cannot see it. It is not cloudy. It is the invisible killer in canning. And so if you're not doing something correctly, it can be extremely harmful. That's why I always encourage people, hey, if you can come to my class and learn, those steps, hands-on. Yes.
So people use botulinum toxin as a cosmetic. Does it work with paralysis? You die by suffocation?
I am not a doctor, Botox, so I have no idea. And so it can paralyze you. You can stop breathing.
It is your nervous system.
Yeah. But I'm not sure of what the total effects are, but trouble breathing and things like that are a side effect. Yep. And so you just have to be very, very cognizant. Make sure you're using follow research-based tested recipes as much as great grandma's recipe was amazing in 1940s, 1930s, whenever it might have been. That is not a research-based tested recipe. I mean, heck, they were just putting wax on top of stuff to seal them, y'all. Don't do that. And so you really need to frame that recipe in your house and just keep it up as something pretty. Have it in your memory book, something like that.
My mother wants to do paraffin and then she sealed it and then she pressure cooked.
No need for the paraffin. No need, because you can get something under that paraffin that can't come out because of that blockage. Yes.
Okay.
And so no need for paraffin in that. If she's gonna water bath it anyways, just delete that stuff. Yeah. Delete that stuff. It's one of those things that even extension recipes that were tested in the 70s are no longer good recipes. So old extension publications, we tell you don't use them. This is the latest and greatest. This is 6th edition, latest and greatest. You can get recipes that you created tested. You can send them to the university and they can test it and say, hey, you need to add 2 cups of vinegar to this for this to preserve correctly. Or you need to make sure that it is in a water bath for 20 minutes for it to be preserved correctly. So you can get a recipe that you created tested. It does cost money. I have not sent one there, but you can send one to the university to do that.
What's the publisher name of it?
It's the University of Georgia. And the easiest way, Google, so easy to preserve University of Georgia. It takes you right to their site, $25, no shipping.
Maybe I'll get her that book.
It is a wonder. You learn so much stuff just reading through it that you're like, oh, that's why they do that. Or
because you won't believe me, but you'll believe the book.
Right. And this has gone under so much research. It's amazing. And it's a very, very good book. Because you want to make sure that if you're doing this for people, you're usually doing it because you love them, right? Like, I made this out of love and I want to give it to you because I love you. You don't want to harm them. So let's do it correctly and make sure that we're doing it right. So there are a few methods of home food preservation. Refrigeration is one of them. It's a great way to slow the growth of germs and other microorganisms. I get the question from my 4-Hers all the time. How do I know that a tomato doesn't need to be refrigerated, but lettuce does? Like they're trying to figure that out. And how do I know what needs to be refrigerated, not? I go, well, where was it in the store? Was it in the cooler or was it just out? And then it starts to click. Oh, Potatoes don't have to be refrigerated. Onions don't have to be refrigerated, but my squash does. And so if they can picture HEB in their brain and where that item came from, they know what needs to be refrigerated and not.
But is the need not, is that, I mean, you can put potatoes and carrots in the fridge just for,
Carrots are in the refrigerated section,
yeah, and some potatoes might be, some.
not in HEB.
Not in.
I mean, you're gonna get some, you might get some weird taste going on. Tomatoes, tomatoes, I can't tell you the science behind it. Ginger has told me, but tomatoes, there's some weird stuff that
You
happens.
shouldn't put them in the. No, ooh, that's interesting.
They
I
taste
always
better
put
if they're
them in
not
the fridge.
refrigerated.
They do,
too.
yeah, they do taste better, and there's some science behind it. I don't know the science behind it. You can probably ask Kevin.
And potatoes don't like the moisture in the fridge.
Ooh.
Yeah, they're probably more likely grow.
I just throw everything in the fridge so the mice don't get it before I do.
But potatoes would be heavier in a box on the floor in the cold place in your house.
Yeah,
So just really
Two
monitor.
layers.
Yeah,
mice will like them too.
yeah.
and so
Well, your old house at in the pantry, they didn't have shelving.
mhm,
They had carpenter cloth
yes.
in there for airflow through.
Yes.
I know we looked at a house years ago that one of them opened up one of them, and that's all it was shelves with cloth, and is open from the bottom all the way up through the
Yep.
ceiling.
So you can do that.
So you have the fresh air going through it.
Yes, yes. And so it's, I mean, that's why you don't like potatoes, don't keep them in your bag. You're creating an environment for them to grow something. And there are tips and tricks on refrigeration on the University of Georgia website, the preservation website. And so if you want a little bit more, go there. But your refrigeration needs to be 40 degrees or cooler. That's important. If it's not, check out your refrigerator. Keep a thermometer in there, guys. Sometimes you don't realize your refrigerator is losing refrigeration. Like you might have it on the coldest setting and it is not hitting 40 degrees consistently. And where you want it to be 40 degrees is at the front of your fridge, not the back. So put the thermometer at the front of your fridge, because every time you open it, you should see that it's below 40 degrees. And so that's just a, good tip on refrigeration. The downsides of refrigeration, you're not going to get the long life preservation from a product. You're going to preserve it for a little bit longer than it would have lasted maybe, sitting out on the ground or on the, table. But you will get, your 3 to 6 days, maybe a little longer. The product will start to decline, even if it looks good. Its flavor will decline. It'll start tasting rootier, like carrots, things like that. And the reason we do that is because of the enzymes that are in these vegetables. They're natural compounds. Everything natural decomposes in some form or fashion. So what can we do to make them last longer? Make sure you're cleaning them properly. You're taking off some of that dirt that's going to help that process go faster, not go over as long. Those enzymes keeps working after they're picked, and over time they can cause the vegetables to spoil. You can stop those enzymes by heating the fruit or vegetables and blanching them. And so that's one way to stop them. That's why you blanch items, certain fruits and vegetables, before you freeze them. You're really stopping that enzyme from staying a part of that product, and then you really slow that down at the freezing point. Freezing is actually the easiest method of home food preservation. Most of the time lasts just as long if you have a big freezer. I have a big freezer. I love it. Because my mother-in-law loves to give me pears almost by the truckload. I can't eat that many pears. My husband doesn't eat them, but I freeze them, and then I make them a part of pies and strudel and stuff as I go throughout the year. It's a safe method for any food. It can change the texture quality of food. For onions, you can freeze onions. I freeze onions on a regular basis, but onions aren't good. Those frozen onions aren't what I'm going to use to top my salad with, because what I'm missing that crunch. It's going to be a little slimier. Well, I'm going to put those onions in the soup, And so anytime you catch a good deal on onions, bell peppers, go ahead and do something to preserve them. Bell peppers, they're expensive, y'all, but I eat bell peppers a lot. And so I really do try to, you know, okay, this is a really good price. I ran out of what I had in my freezer. Let me go ahead, wash it up, freeze it properly. And then I have bell peppers that last me a long time, and only then buy the fresh ones for my salad as needed. I pretty much keep a stock of onion, garlic, and bell pepper in my freezer.
So how do you freeze bell pepper?
Bell pepper, I probably don't do it as correctly as I should. I will say that. I do wash it really well and cut it. I chop it and then freeze it in a freezer bag. You can put it in plastic.
And you just throw the whole pepper in the freezer?
I
No.
don't know. No. You got those seeds in there. You're gonna wanna do some of the pre-work before that.
I'll just cut the top off
You cut the top off.
and then just take the seeds out and leave it whole, because the less cut you have, the longer it's gonna last.
Haven't heard that.
And that way, if you wanna make a stuffed bell pepper,
You still got a bell pepper.
you got a bell pepper to lid for it.
There, on the University of Georgia website, there is it's a litany of links. So it goes down through like almost every vegetable and fruit on how to properly freeze it.
There's a table somewhere where I can find.
Oh,
out
it is hot linked. So
If it needs to be blanched or not.
yes, it is alphabetical order, you know, and I believe the freezing handout I gave you does have a chart in it with some of it as well. But that one came from UGA as well. So just, you know, if you're more of an internet person and you're like, I just need to know what asparagus is, University of Georgia Home Food Preservation asparagus, will take you right there.
Awesome.
And
Because I know people who put like cookie sheets and stuff in the freezer, pull it out, bag, done.
yes, and the reason they do that is so it remains like strawberries, like the picture, it remains whole, it's frozen, and so when they get it out, they pop off of each other quicker.
No freezer burn.
And it does stop germs from growing, but doesn't kill them. So understand you still have to heat up your items and prepare them correctly. Slows enzyme activity, doesn't stop them. Blanching stops the enzymes. If you blanch the item, it does stop it.
Are there tips for people who are sticking these like parchment paper or something like that?
You can do that, yeah.
Never done this before.
Yeah.
This is all my mother-in-law.
You can do that. It's
I don't,
it makes it too soft.
yeah.
Yeah, there's certain ones they do recommend blanching, and there's certain ones that not. There will be an effect on how long it will last in your freezer.
Bell peppers last a long time.
They do. They do. I would highly suggest if you are doing a lot of freezing, make sure you're labeling how long it's been in the freezer and you're rotating things very, very well, because I have found stuff that's been hidden for 2 years and go, well, I'm not gonna eat that anymore. They really suggest making sure that your freezer has about a 9-month rotation on it. Your stuff should last a year for best quality, 18 months, but it's gonna start going down in quality after that year. And that includes this. Quality is gonna start, you know, going down. It's still gonna be okay, but quality is gonna start going down.
You mean to say I need to throw that stuff in the freezer that my father-in-law put up in 1920?
Yeah, make sure that one goes away. Or donate it to science, either one. Either one. Now we're moving into the canning aspect. I did bring some gadgets today that some people don't know exist yet. So I like using them in class because people think it's super cool. One of the first ways we were going to talk about is you can preserve by sweetening a product or adding acid. And so we do that making jams and jellies. I like making jam and jelly. It's one of my favorite things to do. It started from an obsession with poteach strawberries. And then now we make poteach strawberry jam. And I do this with my mom and my niece, and we absolutely love it. And we do it with this gadget. And a lot of people don't realize it exists. It's a jelly maker.
Oh,
and it stirs for you. So you don't have to go over the pot and stir. It does come, it's a ball product. It does come with a recipe book. It's pretty minimal, but their website has a bunch more. It's great to use with kids because it's not as like, she can do this portion of it. Maybe not the water, my niece can't do the water bath portion, but she can do this portion of it. It only makes 4 pints at a time, a little half pint, like the half size of this, which is not a lot. However, the beauty of it is we have a batch going here. You're getting your water bath prepared for the preservation portion. Once this is done, it takes 23 minutes. Once this is done, I put them in the jars, put them in the water bath. I start another round on this. While that stuff's canning, preserving, I start another batch. And it's about, it takes 15 minutes for the water bath. It takes about 23. So it's, I'm rolling. So we do about 4 rounds every time we make jelly. So we get about 4. It's a little bit over $100. Not bad. I like I don't have to sit and worry
Stand
about
there and stir it.
stir it. You don't have to worry about burning it. It comes out every time. Every time.
Is it non-stick?
It is non-stick, and I do not put it in the washer. It cleans up super easy. It just almost
Where'd
wipes
you
out.
buy it?
I bought this one online because they were out when I went to buy it in person. Some stores like Walmart get 1 or 2 every year, but you can get it on Amazon for the same price. You can get it on the Ball website for the same price. It is just a cool, it is a gadget. But if you like making jelly and jam but do not want to stand over it, oh, it's a godsend. And you know, I was saying my mom was a county extension agent for almost 40 years. She retired about 2 years ago. And when she started talking to her coworkers about this and how cool it was and what we were doing at the house, they were like, cheating. You're cheating. And my mom was like, no, I'm not. You try it. You try it. And so they started trying. There's like, oh my gosh, it's the best thing ever. And it's like, see, I told y'all. Told y'all.
Once you eat homemade jelly, what you buy at the store tastes like sugar and water.
It does. It does. And they do have reduced sugar recipes as well. The Ball website has quite a few more than the book that comes with it, but it's very.
And it's just called a jelly.
It's called Jelly Maker. Fresh Tech Jelly Maker. Yep. Fresh Tech Automatic Jam and Jelly Maker.
Blueberry.
Mhm.
What are some of the best berries to, would you do blueberries in the jam?
I use anything.
Any berries?
As long as I have a recipe that's, you know, out of here or part of the
An
cookbook for this.
abundance of the berries.
Yes. Like, I'm not going to be preserving blueberries that cost me $6
No,
a pint.
exactly.
No. I'm gonna wait for the sale and I'm gonna get them on
Or pick
sale.
them at the farm.
Or buy them in the freezer section. I made peach jam with this week as a demo. I bought them from the freezer section. They're frozen at their height, at the pinnacle of when they're the most ripe. They're good. And so if you find a good deal on a frozen, yeah,
Peach that's fresh anymore, it tastes like a peach.
it's
That's
very
true.
good.
Here, when you said
Peaches are
pears,
not
I was like, you just let me know. and I'll
They gotta be in
I don't like it
season.
when you, I mean,
Right.
nothing in the store tastes like it because I think it's too.
Yeah, too early so that
And you
it-
never have the taste like these.
right. And so the jelly you make from juice, like the juice from the aisle, and you can make great jelly from the juice from the aisle. It's pretty fantastic. There's wine jelly. There's all sorts of jelly you can make with this thing. It just doesn't make a lot, which is fine. But it's such an easy cleanup, and it's not cheating. It's just working smarter, not harder. And then I'll go a little bit into what this guy is here in a minute, which most y'all might know what it is. So that's the wrong thing. That's my old one. Canning, when done right, the heat kills germ and causes vacuum that seals the lids. So what it's doing when we're canning, and I'm going to talk about that here in just a minute. It's taking it heats it up. Get it to a certain point, 212 for a certain amount of time. You take it out and you put it on your counter, and you'll start hearing the popping of the lids going. And when you hear that, what's happened is all the air has been taken out of here and it's sucked down the lid. So it popped. Okay. And so you want that air to go away so things can't live and breathe in there. And then you have a product that's going to last a long time. Now, when people start canning, there are some safety tips with stoves to keep in mind. I do have, one of those black and white metal canners that I use for work. It works great. I have a gas stove at work, and so I can get 2 on my gas stove, and we can have 15 people canning, no problem. With a coil stove, an electric stove, you're going to want to make sure your water bath canner is absolutely flat. And you do not have to use a true deal water bath canner. You can use just a nice pot that you have at your house, as long as what you have in there, you get an inch of water over it. You can use just a nice deep pot. You can use an old pressure cooking pot that you don't know if the pressure cooker works anymore, but it's a nice big solid pot. It's flat on the bottom. You can use that. Just put the lid on top. Who cares about pressure cooking? You're just doing the water bath portion of that. If you have a glass top stove, read your manufacturer's directions before you do any sort of canning on it, because that glass can shatter because of the heat the long-term heat you are creating. On most stoves, it is not recommended that you can on them, on the glass ones. This is an electric water bath canner. So you can do it even if you don't have a stove. I use this as an extra one when we end up with more people in my class. I try to keep this 15. Sometimes I have to go up to 20. I use this guy, and it works. And it's electric. It fits about the same amount as the black and white metal ones do. And, you can get tall jars in it. You can get short jars in it. This has a little thing where you can separate, put smaller jars at the bottom, smaller jars on top. But if you have a glass top stove, this is a little expensive, but totally cheaper than a new stove. And I would suggest investing in that if canning is something you want to do. Also investing in it, just if you are going to do a lot of canning, use another top, a cooktop. And so you can, if you're doing a lot of it, if you do another cooktop, I could take these 2 things to my house and never touch my stove and just do everything I was going to do for dough making right there. Just neat. But these are worth, they're more expensive than this, which shocked me. But they are worth their weight in gold if you need it.
You can't can in your Instant Pot.
You cannot, please do not can in your Instant Pot. You can do a water bath. Manufacturer's direction says you can do a water bath canning. Do not pressure can in your Instant Pot. It has not been tested by the manufacturer. It's not been tested by University of Georgia. Who knows what could happen? And you don't want to be the one that might blow the top off that thing at one point. And so it's definitely not recommended.
There's a lady on the internet who says you can,
What about
jars.
an induction
So
stove?
we're just waiting for her to explode her Instant Pot.
Either that or cause botulism.
Okay,
Or a surge in her electrical.
Yeah,
It's not
because
properly watered.
first off, baby food jars, are they
we're not
recycled?
full. No.
Are they recycled? Okay, her jars are probably going to break at some point because they're too thin, and she's not using tested recipes, and so who knows if she has the right amount of citric acid in it or vinegar or whatnot to preserve that properly. And yeah,
Does she have the right seals?
yeah, is she getting the right seal on the product? Especially if you're recycling lids. These lids fit these jars. If I'm using a recycled mayonnaise jar, this lid's not made for it. And so how do I know I'm getting the appropriate seal?
You're just plain not.
Yeah. And so those are the people you have to watch out for on the internet because they're going, it works, it works, it works.
And those jars.
Until it doesn't, or until you've seriously harmed somebody with a foodborne illness.
I just looked it up and see what I got it in. Can I can?
No, but those have a separate lid so that the air can get out. A baby food jar doesn't have the separate top to the side.
And you have,
That's why it pops, because they're separate.
and you have the
They have
seal.
a release.
Well, and you have a seal on here.
Yeah.
This one's a bad seal too. It's on this one. Because it's already been used. You only use these once. These are one-timers.
You gotta replace.
You gotta replace them because that seal's been used. I'm not gonna use this again. I can reuse this. Can't reuse this. There are Tadler, I think it's Taddler, maybe T. Is it TT? They have a reusable multi.
And they work great.
I have not used them, and so, but they've been tested.
Yeah.
I've heard good things about them. I just haven't used them. I need to buy a set when I find them.
They are phenomenal.
And so that's a way you can have cost savings is by getting reusable lids, especially if you're using them for yourself. That's a cost savings there. And if you're you know, if you want to go through the process of making jelly, but not going through the process of, you know, putting it in a water bath canner to put it in your pantry, you can straight put a freezer lid on it and put it in your freezer. And I would suggest if you're going to be putting things in your freezer, like I'm going to do all the process, but I'm not going to do the water bath or the pressure portion of this, I would suggest doing it with jars that have the neck on them, not the wide mouth ones like that one, because it just really helps with the, you know, expansion. But these are wonderful. You can put the jelly straight in the freezer and it's good for 18 months. You can put this straight in the freezer and it's good for 18 months. I haven't tried it, but it should be. But I love these and they're great for, okay, I've used this, like I just opened this for the first time.
Now in the fridge.
Yeah, now in the fridge. And you're gonna less likely have things that, you know, I mean, your lid, the rings start going bad. I mean, and most people don't realize this, don't store with your rings on. Like if this is in my pantry, I left this on here today because I was traveling. But if this is in my pantry, this is how it's in my pantry. These start to rust, especially down here. And so this is how it's stored in my pantry. I don't put this back on until I've taken this lid off, or I put one of those lids on it.
I apologize. I was taking notes. What was the plastic lid called?
It's a wall freezer lid. It's leak-proof lids. They're airtight, freezer safe. Ball makes them, I believe Kerr makes them too. But yeah, you can find this right now at Walmart. They're great. Like my husband likes to leave like this much water in his water bottles all the time. And so what I started doing was pouring them in a jar like this, and then it was all cold again and he could consume it again because he would just leave water bottles lying around. So it's a good, you know, it's a good resource. I mean, if you're going to make your own baby food, find a tested recipe, use this, put it in the freezer. Don't be trying to preserve it in your Instant Pot. That's not what we do.
One of the things is whenever you're talking about doing the lids,
Mm-hmm.
you hear a pop.
Mm-hmm. They sing.
Yeah, well, when you're through, you're not gonna count how many pops. But go back and take your fingernail and tap the top of them, because every now and then one of those lids does not seal.
Right.
And you don't want.
Yeah.
But you don't want to open that jar 6 months later. put it that
Right.
way, 'cause you're gonna leave the house.
And so
It's sealed.
right. So you can leave, like I left this on, I made this at work. I left it on, you can leave it on the counter, just right out 24 hours. I checked it, made sure it was sealed. But if it happened to not be sealed, I can take the lid off, and this is before the 24-hour timer is up. If 24 hours timer is up, it gets thrown away. If I know it's not sealed before that 24-hour timer is up, I can put a new lid and seal, put it back in the water bath and try again. If I don't want to do that again, just put it in your fridge
Or eat it.
or eat it and then put it in your fridge. But it's that there's a 24-hour grace window to figure out if it preserved, because you don't want to touch them because first off, they're real hot and they might still pop even after an hour. So give them some time. Don't really touch them. But before that 24-hour time has elapsed, make sure they've sealed, tap them, feel them, make sure it's sealed. And if it's not, refrigerator, freezer, eat it, do something, or process it. Do something with it. Pickling and fermenting is another way to preserve. Pickling, you're using a brine, which is basically vinegar, salt, water, sometimes sugar, to preserve a product. And you can put it in a water bath. You do not have to pressure cook it because of the amount of acid you have in that product now. Fermenting is a totally different story. I'm gonna find my slide that talks, because I don't have it on this one, that talks about the difference between fermenting and pickling. What?
Sauerkraut.
Sauerkraut, yes. Chow chow. Okay.
Especially if they bet.
Pickling preserves food using acid and salt, which is a brine. Fermenting is a process by which microorganisms, which are bacteria, and they're the good kind, are encouraged to grow in foods that produce desired changes in texture, taste, or appearance. It's about a 3-week process. So it sits on your counter, growing this healthy bacteria, and every now and then you scrape the slime and grossness off the top and let it sit there again. I do not ferment because I'm just like,
Bad juju.
yeah, I just feel weird about it, but there are appropriate steps to take. Extension, some people will not refrigerate it after it's done or not do. Extension encourages you to go ahead and put it in a hot water bath. After it's done, go ahead and do all that stuff that kills the good germs, bad germs, all the bacteria, and then you have a product that is quote unquote safe.
We're frozen sauerkraut, we're meant to.
Yeah.
But it stinks up the freezer.
It does. And so fermenting is weird. I have not done it. My coworker that I was doing this class with this week, she has, and she keeps hers in the refrigerator after a while. She can't do, she just gets weirded out. And so she puts it in the refrigerator because she loves sauerkraut, she loves chow chow, so she does make her own. But this does take you through all the steps to make it appropriately safe. It's just weird. Not saying don't do it, just make sure you're doing it correctly.
And there are commercially available germs.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so if I have a pickle jar, like let's say the kosher pickles, and I ate the pickles, and then I have cucumbers, and I slice them and throw them in that pickle jar with that in there, is that gonna give me botulism?
I wouldn't do it
No, why?
because you haven't heated up that brine again.
Oh,
You don't know what germs got in there and
oh,
what
'cause I
what
do that
germs
all the
what
time.
germs is on my cucumber that's now in there that I didn't fully wash because it hasn't been heated up to 212 degrees.
Wow.
Now, if you're gonna do that,
And then
like
right away.
do it like super
Just
right
flavor-
away. Just do it
flavor
the
them.
flavor. But and yeah, no, I would
Now
not
you're
I
gonna
would not
betray.
slice up that cucumber and then put it in my
And
No.
furthermore,
I
every
do it all the
organism
time.
is full of water. And as you're adding it to that brine, you're diluting that brine. So it's not as salty, it's not as
It's that
acidic,
balance.
and so you're losing some of the preservation quality every time you throw another vegetable in there.
yeah. So how long are you letting that brine last in your fridge by adding just more vegetables to it?
I don't know. I've done it like I've done that since I was a kid. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I just love fish
She's
juice.
so light.
Yeah.
So I throw
But
stuff
see,
in there.
This is what's scary about foodborne illnesses. You get sick 2-3 days later, maybe.
Yeah, you don't.
You
realize
don't
what
really,
it was.
and you think, oh, it's a bug, but it might have been what you did there because
Wow.
it's 2 or 3 days later. And so I'm not going to go into this very much. Drying is another method that you can use to preserve food. And which method do you choose? Which one's cost effective for you? Which one has the better taste for you? Which one are you willing to put the money into? Processing time, how long am I going to be able to have it? So you want to look at those items before you jump into it, because is it economical? Depends. Do you have the equipment needed? Maybe, but don't use grandma's pressure cooker from 1970. Pressure cookers now are way more stable. Most pressure cookers only have about a 13-year life on them. And the seals go bad. And if you're not replacing that seal on a regular basis, you're not getting your pressure checked on your pressure canner, you might not be using the correct pressure to can. Extension agents, I know myself, Karen in Calhoun County, we have where we can test your pressure on your canner. We have the tools to do that in our county if you need that done. There are replacement costs. Don't use jars from 1970 either. Those are probably vintage and worth a little bit of money. Keep those on the shelf and go buy new ones. They're not that expensive. Do you have low cost foods available to you? And will your family actually eat it? My husband told me outright he ain't gonna eat this. I know, so I'm good, but he told me outright I ain't gonna eat that. I'm like, okay. And that's it. That's it. All right. You're welcome.